Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Mannino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hey, everybody, this is Michael Mannino with Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals and financially successful people who will be sharing their experience and tips with you, the audience. How they got to where they're at today. And zooming from the beautiful island of Naples, Florida, is Keith with MAG Architectural Glass. Keith, would you say hi to everybody?
How you doing, Michael? Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you. So, what do you do? If you can give me a brief snapshot of what your business looks like, what you do, and we were off camera talking about the great things that happened to you today. Let's crack that open a little bit.
Yes, thank you. So, my architectural glass specializes in designing, measuring, manufacturing, and installing interior and exterior glass railings, all glass wine cellars, and kind of room dividers, office partition. So we're an interior residential and commercial glazier, as they call them. But we specialize. We're kind of more of a niche. We're not a full service glass company. We found our niche.
Well, what is your niche exactly? So if people listening could understand your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically, if back in the day, if you were a glass shop, you kind of covered the whole gamut. You did mirrors, shower doors, storefront, staircase, like you did everything. And as you know, it's probably tough to get really good at everything just because of the time, the 10,000 hour rule. So we kind of carved out what we thought was products that we could be really good at, that were fun and enjoyable and kind of progressive in our area as well, because of the way the remodeling is going. And so we, out of the whole gamut of everything in the glass industry, we carved out the railings. These new all glass wine cellars in some of these homes is a big thing right now here. People showcasing their wine. And then, of course, I call them the Google offices, the all glass offices. Google probably 20 years ago, I believe, did a study that most people thought Google wants my glass office so the boss can spy on me and see what I'm doing on my computer, which actually wasn't the case. It was very forward thinking. Google realized that the amount of natural sunlight and vitamin D that was being brought into the office instead of in these 4 sheetrock walls made the human being 31% smarter, which made them way more productive.
Really?
Just because of the environment that they were in. It was more collaborative. It was more positive. I think they said, Harvard did a study on too, like the human being is 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. And they equated the natural daylight coming into these offices is positivity, hence making the worker smarter, making better decisions, collaborating better with their teammates. And so here in Florida, we feel like we're a little bit behind the schedule on some of these progressive items that might happen out west. So in the last 10 years, this has been a massive thing here on the west coast of Florida, remodeling a lot of these older commercial offices, or even some of these residential high rises that they pay these big bucks to have the view of the ocean, but they have an office on the backside of the condo that they want their privacy, but they still want to see the view. So we close it in with glass. And so
that's a great idea. What's nice about that, as I built before, is you don't have to put up walls, you don't have to put drywall, you don't have to put electrical, you don't have to put any of that stuff up. You just put the sheets of glass. And most people really don't understand that when they see glass, they really think super expensive. All the prices I got with glass, it really wasn't that bad. Like, some of my big clients were like radio personalities, and they wanted in their workout room, they want mirrors. And then we give them a price, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot less than I anticipated. So,
yeah, it has that allure. It's sexy. Like for social media, the glasswork it's sexy. But I think a lot of times people think, well, this must be expensive because it just looks so good.
Right. Exactly. And it's more reasonable than people think. Every time I've given a price on the glass, they're like, oh, yeah, that ain't bad. And they had this higher, well, like you said, the value of it is really, the value is way more than the price, is what I'm trying to illustrate. Make sense?
I feel the same way.
We agree wholeheartedly. I noticed one thing. There's a lot of competition in what you do. A lot. Um, Wondering what you guys do to set yourself apart. We talked about it a little bit earlier. You went into a niche. Explain that and how you attack that niche.
When we first started our business, our sister company is called My Shower Door. It was just a shower door company. Again, another niche business, just pulling out that one component out of the glass industry. We started to really get after it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years and just found that we weren't growing as much as we wanted to. And we had to look, it wasn't because of lack of opportunities. When we started our business in 2003, this, if you were selling anything from 2003 to 2008, unless you were just, had your head in your ass, you were making money. The problem was we were making money despite ourselves. It was because of the market conditions that were allowing us to make money. We didn't have a lot of processes and procedural stuff put in place to really make sure we're capturing all the opportunities. So it wasn't until, start banging your head against the wall and kind of getting closer to that 10,000 hour rule where we really start to hone in on, what our business, what's our mission, what's our goals, and what's the best way to monetize every one of these opportunities. Maybe not even monetize, but filter them out, because how much time is spent on opportunities that we're never going to get in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so when we finally got tired of banging our head against the wall, we started looking at other things, promoting certain people within the business to maybe different roles. We took a deep dive. My favorite thing to talk about after social media is emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. I went out and seeked out an individual that I felt was somebody that I would want to model myself after. I think a lot of people take advice from people they probably shouldn't be taking advice from. My old man used to tell me that, Keith, don't ever take advice from someone you wouldn't switch places with in that specific thing. And so I found somebody that I deemed a top level negotiator. And I learned, and really what I learned during this was the backbone behind high level emotional intelligence negotiating was empathy. And be almost tactfully using empathy to build rapport, which is the fastest way to getting to trust, what we were talking about earlier off camera, to be able to collaborate with some of these people. Because what we were finding out is a lot of opportunities were coming to us. And we were so keen on that flashy new opportunity that we weren't actually listening to what they were wanting and maybe not even wanting. I can't tell you how many hours that I spent on quotes that these people were never going to do business with us in the first place. They were just validating another bid. They may not even lived in this state. They were down here on their winter break, just getting information for a project up north. And I'm not saying you shouldn't help those people, but the level of expectation I was putting into every one of these new opportunity meetings, I found myself wasting a lot of time. And after going down that rabbit hole of the sales and emotional intelligence, what I learned was I was able to qualify these customers better while still preserving their autonomy for potentially an opportunity in the future. Mm-hmm. And that bought a lot of time. And so then we started rolling that out within the company. And now you're starting to see a lot more numbers, closing ratios, blah, 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 working in our advantage. So now we kind of hammered down on that even more when we started getting into the social media and the benefits of just like this podcasting and promoting other people's businesses through our social media channels. Kind of triggers that reciprocity, which is an emotional intelligent tactic. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of these that I think a lot of us humans use naturally, but once you realize the neurological benefits of a lot of these things, it builds better, long-lasting relationships. I've been told by some people, what you're talking about or doing sounds a lot like manipulation. And it can be. Serial killers and psychopaths use emotional intelligence because it's the quickest way to gain. However, people have intuition, and most often they know when they're being bamboozled. Conversely, the difference between, manipulation and persuasion is intent. If your intentions are to do good by your customer, not only then, but in the future, you have to be emotionally intelligent. You just have to be. And it's a perishable skill, so it's extremely hard. I think that's why so few people succeed when trying to deploy stuff like this, because we find ourselves going back to the way we originally taught, or, you know, we got to show somebody how smart we are by correcting them on something, or, you know, if they say they know something, we got to show that we know something. And that's really, it doesn't bode well for the opportunity. And so this took years to learn this. And what do they say? Your ego is not your amigo. It took a long time.
Ego's not your amigo.
It took a long time to put the ego to the side.
Ego's not, I like that. I like that. Ego's not your amigo. That's going to be the name of the
I like it.
Amigo and Geo. Oh yeah, that's great.
I had a big ego. Had to put the pride aside.
Me and you are cut from the same cloth, and you know, I think we had the same dad. So my dad taught me a long time ago. He goes, take advice from people that are successful in the advice they're giving you. A friend of mine that's been married 7 times was giving me marital advice. Yeah. I didn't take that.
Yes, that's a perfect example. That's not somebody you want to be taking advice from.
There's and that same friend, you know, he in 2008 he lost everything, and I lost $6,000. So, you know, he was a great guy. He passed from COVID, but it was just, I love you, but you know, when you're very successful at something, I'll be more than happy to take your advice. That is the greatest thing you could teach anybody ever, you know, because there's a lot of gurus out there that have, you know, that want to tell you how to make money, but then been broke 2 or 3 times.
Even there's a ton of those. I could talk about those, but even your family members, you know, their intentions, like a mother, oh, you can't do that. It's going to be so hard. You're going to kill yourself over that. Well, like being an entrepreneur, you know, you have to be borderline crazy to begin with. Yeah. So they're taking it, and it's hard not to take advice from family members because, you know, you respect them, you love them,
right.
But
take it with a grain of salt. And, you know, the most, you know, one of the most important things when you're dealing with family and friends is just, you know, just be cordial about it and just respectfully say, hey, you know, you've been married 5 times. You know, I'm comfortable where I'm at now, and thank you for the advice, and thank them for it and move on. But take advice from people that are successful in the advice you're giving you.
Yes,
that's
sir.
probably one of the most important. That's probably one of the most important things I've ever learned in my entire life.
Same.
If someone listening now wants to get better at what you're doing, what would you tell them? And what advice would you give them?
If I was starting over, I would take a deep dive, like I said, on the empathetic, emotional, intelligent approach. And there's more than enough information out there. The person that I took all my advice from on this, his name was Chris Voss. I've heard of him. Yeah, best-selling author with a book called Never Split the Difference. He was a former FBI hostage negotiator, has an awesome masterclass. I got hooked on it because I was at a point where we had the showrooms, we have this installation team, we got our manufacturing facility. I go into these pitches and on Lunch and Learn, and I'm thinking, I'm going to kill it. I have every possible thing that they need at my fingertips. I don't need to go outside the walls of our business. I should be a shoo-in here. And after I kind of tell them about all this and how they have all this at their fingertips, they might as well have just yawned in my face and could give 2 shits. And I was really taken back by that and thinking, I'm going about this all wrong. I need to be finding out what's most important to them without sounding like a typical sales individual, like you're going in to buy a used car. And so taking a deep dive on the empathetic approach will buy you a lot of time, and it'll strengthen all the relationships that you are garnering much quicker. And then the second thing would be the social media. I was massively late to the party. I've only been on social media for it's just about 7 years now.
Only 7 years. I love how you say only 7 years.
Yeah, but relatively speaking, you know, you look at some of the big players like Gary Vee and all these guys that started, you know, when Facebook first came out and they saw the benefits of this. They were on it 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. What I realized, remember Dale Carnegie?
Yes.
Dale Carnegie? Okay, we still send new salespeople to our Dale Carnegie. It's like an 8-week thing. But one of the white papers that I read at a Dale Carnegie class says, this is a perfect example because you were a builder. Let's say my spouse meet you and your spouse at a party, and we start making small talk. Yeah, we're thinking about buying a house. And you're like, oh, we're a builder. Dale Carnegie said, on average, we would have to have 7 to 10 touches. That would have been considered one touch at that party. 7 to 10 touches before we could build enough rapport in order for me to exchange my money for your goods and services. This was on average 7 to 10. This is back in like the 50s when I read this.
He's right. He's right.
Okay, but the social media now that wasn't out when Dale Carnegie wrote this, I'm posting 4 to 5 posts a day across all platforms, 6 days a week. I'm getting these Dale Carnegie touches that he spoke of innocuously. And so I've realized over probably the last 3 years, if a customer comes in our showroom or calls here and has seen the social media, it's either the first or second touch where we're going pen to paper. So when I hear a lot of people say, oh man, I love what you do on social media, I just don't have time. I'm saying you don't have time not to do it.
Correct.
I just condensed that whole sales cycle without having to go to the chamber function, the small business function. You could go to business functions every night.
Yeah.
And I still like doing that because I like interacting with humans face to face, kind of old school. But the social media has poured gasoline on moving that sale down the road without ever having to sell. And so
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I love this. Empathy and social media. If I'm starting a business, those are 2 things I'm going to master.
Gotcha. Great advice. I know exactly what you mean on that. But when you get older and wiser like us, we're getting, you might be catching up to me one day. But I've noticed that when you're good at something, when you're really good at something, and when someone would look at me for a house, it'd be about 7. And this is a major purchase too, right? Anywhere from 5.
Probably one of the biggest decisions outside of getting married is to build a house. Like that's
correct.
On the top 2 or 3 hit rate.
You.
That's a huge decision.
Right. And then when I noticed when I was younger and not as experienced, it was harder for me. It took me more touches. I like that 7 to 10 because it might have took me 20. And then when I got really good at it, I had a very great product. I had a bunch of pictures. I had customers that loved me. And then one meeting, I'd lay it all out for them. Well, here's the customers. Here's this. And the next one, I say, did you call the customers? Did you call my referrals? Did you do that? And then they go, no. I go, do it again. Then we'll talk next time. By the 3rd or 4th, they were signing. And it was really, like you said, getting a rapport and then having, the touches could be me referring referrals to them, and they get touches
That's
from
a
that.
touch. Yeah.
Right? That's a touch. And so when you get good at it, like you're doing right now, it's easier, right? Does that make sense?
1,000%, especially when you can get away from the fear factor and realize what the benefits are. We shoot this. I'll give you a little secret here. So I started doing podcasting like this, and I'm in our showroom as we speak here in North Naples. So in the front part, we got all of our glass products, my office, and in the back, we got a podcast studio and a gym. It's like the Walmart version of Joe Rogan. I mean, it's small, but it's nevertheless, we did it nice. But we would identify people that were on social media that were either a contractor, designer, or architect that we want to do business with.
Correct.
We would invite them, just like you're doing, into the studio for a podcast. Now, I would never pitch any of our products unless they asked. But they're going to see it when they walk through the showroom and they go back. So I don't need to tell them what's available. They're not stupid. They see what's available. I do the podcast, throw them 10 softballs, talking about them. Where are you from? Where are you going? How do you see the industry? Blah, 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 blah. Then I start clipping it up and send it to them. The amount of reciprocity that's triggered, I can't even begin. There hasn't been one individual that we've put in that podcast that I don't do business with today.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Because it's met. What other scenario in today's world are you going to have undivided attention for an hour, no cell phone, and they're most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely going to be telling the truth the whole time because they're on camera. Yeah. And so you get to build a lot of rapport in a short, and if you know what you're doing, you can build a hypnotist can hypnotize you in 30 seconds. If you can't build a rapport with somebody in an hour, you got to start studying.
Right. Agreed. I agree.
And then the side benefit is I chop that up and put it out through our social media platform. And then they love you. They're like, oh my God, I can't even get people in our own company to promote our business. Now I got one of my subcontractors promoting our business. And so there's just so many legs to it. It's hard to believe people aren't really adopting it to help move their business forward because it just has so many innocuous benefits.
They just don't know the benefits. You know, and I agree with you with the camera. I used the camera one time to my advantage for building inspectors, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. So they can be a pain in the butt once in a while.
Yes.
And we were building a house in 6 days. And there was a film crew there, and that's where I learned to be okay with being on camera. But I noticed on the first inspection, the camera guys were like looking at him. And then they said, yeah, you're good, but I need you to do a couple things, which translates, they're being a little bit nicer to us because usually they'd say, no, you don't pass and you got to get this. And we're building in 6 days. We're building a house in 6 days. We need to pass on that time.
Yeah, we don't have time for revisions or anything.
I don't have time for reinspection. And then the next one came around and I said, hey, camera guys, whenever the inspectors come over there and make them a character and look at their pad and stuff like that. And they came and he goes, oh, all my batteries are dead. I don't care. Just get the cameras. They were dead cameras and they were looking at, they're looking at him and talking, like doing, and it made it easier for us, right?
He didn't want to be the negative. He didn't want to be the Karen, right? So he was going to.
He didn't want to be the reason that we weren't going to complete this house in 6 days, right? So, like you said, when the camera shows, the camera shows truth and they want to be honest, or they also want to be helpful too. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Massively powerful. Massively powerful.
I learned it that day. I learned that how it came out that day. So everybody's had problems over the years. What is the biggest challenge you've had and how have you overcome it?
Culture was probably the biggest roadblock because my brother and I, so when we started the business, my brother, our father, and myself, and we did everything just like every small business starting off would do. You do everything, you answer phones, everything.
Yep.
And then you start to grow and you're going to have kind of two types of owners. You have people that hire who they believe can do the job and they delegate and empower, or you have the micromanagers. And maybe not so much micromanagers, but ones that want to have their thumb on every decision. And we did that for a while. And I think that's what hindered our growth in the infancy of our company, which was probably a good thing because I don't necessarily know that we would have been prepared to handle any more growth than we already had. However, when we got to the point where the infrastructure and the manpower and the teammates were there, is kind of when we realized, we have to delegate more. We have to trust people more. People say you have to earn the trust. We give the trust. It's yours to lose.
Right.
And we found by empowering people and putting them, again, back into this power of positivity, if they're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind, well, nobody is in a positive frame of mind when their manager or owner's got their thumb in their eye on every decision. That's just not a good environment. And so that
you learned that from experience.
So our architectural class, we have our own manufacturing arm. Got about a 70,000 square foot facility where we manufacture tempering ovens, everything. And when we first opened that in 2012, my brother and I would sell during the day and we'd do manufacturing at night. And I remember our controller came to us about 6 months into it and said, you guys are about 3 months away from crashing everything. And we're like, how is this possible? We're so busy, we can't even keep you up. He goes, it's your turnover in the factory. Because there's this learning curve on people using the machines and the glass. And so now they're going through live product during their learning curve. And when they're going through this learning curve, they have management there side by side so they don't get hurt and it's a $2 million machine or $700,000 machine. So they have to have eyeballs on them. So the amount of capital that's tied into a new employee in this kind of learning curve area is heavy. We were just churning people because we were so stuck on getting what we needed done that we weren't being empathetic. We weren't being a good leader. And when he told us that we were that close to, kind of collapsing the whole thing, that was our rock bottom. That was where the Amigo, your ego's not your amigo. And that's when it went to the back. And one hire changed that whole dynamic. This kid knew nothing about manufacturing, knew nothing about glass other than he had a shower door. He was a golf professional. I wanted to get out of the industry, but what he was good at was people. And he'd come in every day in this factory. He's wearing a shirt and tie, shakes everybody's hand. He was getting in the pit, digging out the glass grind when he had to. It was literally almost overnight, the culture changed. Last year, there's turnover rates differ depending on the industry that you're in. And typically manufacturing has a high turnover rate, even especially nowadays with younger generations. There's so many opportunities. They don't need to manufacture. We were at like a decimal level, like virtually no turnover, which was unbelievable. And that had nothing to do with any of the ownership, other than the fact getting out of the way and let somebody who can lead this team into a manner that's, profitable, productive for the company, good for the customer. So probably the biggest mistake was not delegating enough and bestowing the trust upon the individual early on in the process.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. When I ran people, I would show them how to do it my way. I would never make them do it my way. I want you to do it in this time frame with the end result being this. And then once you gave them ownership of their labor, it really changes everything.
Everything.
I learned that real quick because there's a lot of people that showed me. Here's one you're gonna like. A long time ago when I first started, I showed this guy that's been doing it for 30 years a different way of doing it. I go, I do it like this. And then he said, I've been doing it the other way for 30 years. And I said, what if you've been doing it wrong for 30 years? And that kind of opened my eyes too, that there's always a better way. And then when I was the leader, I let people show me. I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. Hey, that's a great idea. Hey, that's a great idea. Let them take ownership of it, and you'll be surprised what they can get out. Because you know better than I do. You don't know everything.
Of course, no. I surround myself with people that know everything. I know probably the least amount, other than the fact that I know how to hire the right people.
There you go. That's a skill set in itself.
The other benefit to that is not the illusion of control, but even though I might know the answer, if I can tee them up into a position where they find the answer themselves, that's empowering. That gives people purpose. Like,
yes.
This position that I'm in is my life. Like, I feel this is my purpose, my job, but no one else can feel that way if you don't empower them to be that way. And I think that's how you kind of squeeze all the blood out of the rock, is empower, trust, empower them, coach them.
Right.
I like Gary. You know Gary V. You listen to any Gary V stuff?
Absolutely.
What did he say that I love?
There's a lot of stuff. You're gonna have to file it down.
Yeah, he's big on that, and that's not talked about enough. That's not empowering people. The old, I can't find somebody to work as hard as I do. Well, dude, they don't own the company. They shouldn't. Right. You need to know their role. And he says, I work for them. That Jack Welch used to talk about. That's a lot of owners. It's like, I started this from nothing. This is my money. This is my business. I get it. Yep. But that's not how you get the best out of people.
Exactly. I think what you're trying to say is, I remember this girl came up to Gary one time and said, tell me if I'm wrong about this. And she comes up and she goes, Gary, I'm listening to you and I'm following everything you're saying. And she goes, one day I'm going to be something. Really, I want to let you know, one day you're going to know me. And he grabs her and looks deep in her eyes and says, you're somebody right now. And then she just froze like a deer caught in a headlight. And he goes, you're amazing as you are. Just show the world. And it really, that impacted everybody in that one.
That's cool. I got chills.
Yeah. Cool. We follow the same people. Like I said, from the beginning of the interview, I think we're going to do real well in this.
Yes.
Sounds like things are going real well for your business, and you're looking forward to the future. Wondering how, what we'd like to concentrate here is, what you've done well at, and how do you turn that into like passive income? How do you make this business and and create financial independence later on?
Financial independence is a beautiful thing.
I agree.
I've been on both sides of this. I think it starts with, obviously your idea or whatever your business is and obsessing over it. I hear a lot of people talk and ask me about work-life balance, and I just respectfully don't think it's possible. If you want to have a very, everybody defines what success looks like in their own eyes, right? But in my case, to build this company to what I deem successful, I have to obsess over it. It's what I think about 24/7. And during that, empowering people to help with your mission and a defined mission and goal statement is important to build the business. And once that starts to happen and start, like I said, empowering, we gift people ownership within our business that we're so dedicated to them. And that has allowed us to grow to the point where we're making a lot of money in areas that I'm not even operating. There's deals being closed within this company I don't even have any clue about, because we've empowered people in a process that allows them to benefit, shows them a pathway forward in the future. And I believe that's the key to, I don't really understand the passive income part, but I can tell you this: empowering people to the point that they can run the business like I was there is a powerful thing for someone like myself, because now I can go and move on and start something else. And then I can go on again and again. And in doing that, it's creating a large volume of income.
Right.
Now,
nice.
Now, do you put it back into the business? Do you spread it with everybody? Do you use it for your own personal gain? That's up to each individual to determine.
Good. I like it.
Yeah.
Wrapping up the interview, thank you for everything. You've been absolutely spectacular. I love the input you give. You've given the listeners some great advice, and I love how you wrap it all up. I was wondering, what is your plans, for your next 6-12 months in your business?
Okay, so one thing that we're aggressively going after right now at My Architectural Glass is we've never sold, and we're dying to sell the entire railing package of a high rise here in Southwest Florida. So one big thing, from Naples all the way up to Tampa, all along the coast is littered with high rises, and maybe 90% plus of these high rises, all their railings and balconies are all the old metal aluminum balusters, which is weird because every year the value of these condos go up and up and up. And the reason why they're so expensive is the view.
Yes.
And so as these condo associations start going through this revamping and remodeling stage, because they have these coffers of money from people paying their HOAs for decades and decades, at some point they replace all the windows, impact windows, they paint the building. And then we're noticing they're pulling out all these railings to expand that already breathtaking view. And
Nice.
So we're actively positioning our company, not only on the manufacturing side, because we do all of our own laminate and tempered glass. We have all the install crews. We have the in-house sales and CAD capabilities. Now we're going to use the social media to garner these newest opportunities that we're trying to tackle within the next year. And we're hoping by the end of this year that we could land our first ever high rise of railings that would change the amount of opportunities almost for everybody within the company, just because of the size of these projects.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can't tackle some of those when you're too small because they can cripple you and probably put you out of business. But I think we've matured to the point now where we can handle that not only financially, but we have the staff and teams to be able to tackle something like that. So that's what our main focus is right now.
Awesome sauce. I can't thank you enough for the interview. This has been fantastic. Love your energy. Love your insights. They've been fantastic. If you'd like to, let everybody know how to get in touch with you, your phone number, your email, or, on social media, how would you like them to contact you?
Yeah. So, we talked about it a little bit. I'm addicted to social media. You might like it. You might not. I really like to use humor as a backdrop for a lot of the stuff I do. Nobody wants to hear my dissertation on the glass industry every day. So I kind of showcase more about my personality And if you want to see what we do, there are hyperlinks on there to click to our website. But on LinkedIn, it's just my name, Keith Daubmann. Then on Instagram, My Architectural Glass. Facebook, Keith Daubmann. We're on YouTube, TikTok. Again, we love the social media. We just never before in the history of business has there been a way for a business owner to get our goods and services out to the market in seconds for free just by doing a selfie video. And so we're taking full advantage of that. And we talked about all the benefits. So if they want to reach out, they can slide into any one of those platforms. Our phone number here is 239-288-5583. I'm here 6 days a week. I don't celebrate my birthday and I don't get sick. So we love any opportunities, especially here on the West Coast of Florida.
Sounds great. Hey, listen, thank you very much. We appreciate everything. And then we'll let everybody go. And if you want to contact Keith, I highly recommend it. My Architectural Glass sounds like an amazing company. Thank you, sir.
Love it.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.